Welcome into a special post-game edition of Lions Central Radio. We're bringing it to you this week on a Friday. Brandon did record on Tuesday a kind of a primer for the Lions game against the Jets. We're now doing a post-game wrap. We'll still have our usual stuff for you guys on Tuesday. We'll have some guests in the coming weeks. That includes on Tuesday. Over the next several weeks leading up to the season, we'll have some guys in here doing season previews and previewing each individual preseason game as well. But for right now, this episode especially, we're just talking the game that happened for us. It was yesterday. Again, we're recording on Friday, so breaking down the Lions and Jets game that just took place. Me and Brandon are going to go through Ameer Abdullah. We're going to go through who looked good as far as the rookies go and what have you. So first, I toss it to my co-host, Brandon Elisaglu.
Yeah, Nick, I didn't want the people. I didn't want you to make a liar out of me. I had to drag you out here to get a second show this week. It's good to have you back. And it's good to give these folks a second show this week because they've been giving us so much by all the increased follows we've seen on Twitter, Facebook, just increased traffic to the website, lionscentralradio.com. And, of course, don't forget to click through that banner at the bottom for the amazon.com hey, leave a donation, whatever you'd like to do. We appreciate it. You guys are the force that keeps us going. Nick, the force that got that offense going. I mean, the spark plug, the one everybody's talking about, Ameer Abdullah.
Yeah.
There was a lot of hype coming into this game. Yeah. Did he exceed it, or was he right there what you thought you'd get from him?
Yeah, I mean, if people were hoping for a bigger gulp of the Kool-Aid, Ameer Abdullah definitely gave him reason to. I hesitate to say he exceeded expectations. I think he looked phenomenal. 7 carries, if you want to throw numbers, it was 7 for 67, so he averaged 9.6. Obviously, that 45-yarder is the one that stood out. Just it doesn't matter if it's preseason or regular season. You can't teach speed. You can't teach the vision, and Ameer Abdullah has both. His cutbacks were phenomenal. He wasn't. What I liked the most about it was he wasn't just cutting for the sake of cutting. He was cutting because he saw a lane and he knew where he wanted to go at all times, and it was north and south. So even when he did shuffle east and west, it was for a purpose, and he was constantly moving down the field. Ameer Abdullah looked as good as advertised. Again, exceeded expectations. Obviously, it's just one preseason game, but you couldn't ask for anything better from Abdullah.
Well, I mean, you hit the nail on the head as far as everything, obviously, that we talk about here. We have to take somewhat with a grain of salt because it's a preseason game and It's not, full starters, full. I mean, Calvin Johnson didn't even play. Although I did see they had him suit up. I will never understand that. Aren't that comfortable?
I asked one of my buddies who he played Division II college ball, and for what that's worth, but he said some of the guys that were injured would still dress just so they could go through the warm-ups and what have you before the game. A lot of guys still dress just for the sake of that. So I'm going to go ahead and guess that's what Calvin was doing.
Okay, and that makes a little sense to me. Kind of ease back into their Sunday routine or Thursday in this case, but still, okay, fine. What's probably not fine is I think it was Copples. Is that the one that Ameer Abdullah? I mean, he had to have hurt him in some way with that juke. It was straight nasty, and that's something you can take away from this game, though. I mean, the cuts are going to be the same. These guys don't want to get embarrassed ever, so it's the first preseason game. They're still playing hard, and that's was he a first round pick? I don't even remember now. It's the Jets. You just kind of, that's another thing. So you have to do 2 grains of salt at least, maybe 3.5, because it's the Jets plus the preseason. But Todd Bowles went out there on a limb, the coach for the Jets.
What a quote!
He evoked the name. We haven't seen that kind of burst ability, I guess, maybe since Barry. I think we saw a little bit of it from Reggie when he was healthy, and obviously Javid Best was. I mean, he motored away when things were going well, but the Barry Sanders comparisons coming out after one game. Are you worried about that at all?
No, I'm not worried about those kind of comparisons. I think what is intriguing here is, and if Abdullah continues to produce like this and look this good in weeks 2 and 3 of the preseason, is just what kind of balance does this end up being for the running for the backfield, and if and when Joique Bell, I don't think he's going to take any preseason reps, but if he does, is it still 60-40 Joique? Is it 50-50? Does Abdullah end up getting the majority of these carries? I mean, go in again, one preseason game, but going into it, I was still very confident that this was Joique Bell's backfield and Abdullah was more the change of pace back, and it looks like he's someone that's fully capable and willing to be an every down back. And I just wonder if Abdullah keeps doing this well in the preseason, when week 1 of the regular season comes around, what does Joique Bell's role actually become?
Well, and that was the hot topic on Twitter, not just Lions Twitter last night, but just national Twitter, because it's obviously there are huge fantasy implications there, as we talked about 2 weeks ago now, or a week and a now I'm all screwed up with this Friday session, so a week and a half ago, I guess. Not that I'm ever fully with it when we're recording, anyways, but I think he's earned himself a few more carries, a few more touches.
Yeah.
But even on the other side, what about Theo Riddick last night? He looked pretty good. I was impressed with. He had a lot of patience, and he was very decisive with his cuts as well. That was one thing I've talked about Ameer Abdullah a lot. Is that his cuts? He's moving forward. He's not dancing around like Reggie Bush. One thing though, I did notice before we transition over to Theo Riddick, he really doesn't have that top end. No. He's gone speed.
Right.
Darrelle Revis caught him, and that's fine. I think it might have been Ken Platt that said it on Twitter, or maybe it was Beast Mode, whichever one it was. One of the stalwarts of Lions Twitter talked about, I'll still take a 45-yard cuff from behind than a 3-yard stuff.
But about on that run though, and one of the things that if there's knocks on Abdullah coming in, other than just the fact that he was a smaller running back, it's that he had fumble problems in college, and Revis was really going for the strip on that, and Abdullah held on strong even when he didn't see Revis coming from behind him. I thought that was a really good sign of just ball security for Abdullah, which is something that's was supposed to be and is going to continue to be one of the main concerns or knocks on him throughout the preseason and his rookie year is, can he hold on to the football? Is he going to be a liability as far as fumbles go? I thought that was a really good sign to see him hold on to that ball with the one arm that he had when Revis tried to scoop it from behind.
Yeah, then that's obviously an all-world cornerback there. As far as Abdullah's fumbling problems, a lot of that was cut down just by his junior year. I think a little bit got overblown.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because the numbers were inflated by his first 2 years. But regardless, it was nice to see. It was really nice to see the way Theo Riddick moved. He was the starter. I don't think you take anything away from that other than, I don't know, they're throwing the veteran a bone. What impressed you about Theo Riddick last night?
And not to knock Theo Riddick, because he did look good, and it was 8 for 35 for him. But I thought his production, and then later on, even a guy like Zach Zenner's production, was just more of a reflection on how good the offensive line looked. And again, not to take from Riddick, but just the interior of the offensive line, I thought got a great push on running plays, especially, and this kind of gets into rookie Laken Tomlinson and the rest of the offensive line more than it does Riddick. But they were given great pushes, and Riddick always had space to open with and space to run through to start. When he needed it, I didn't feel like he had to work through anything at the line of scrimmage. He always had the first 2 yards and then could do what he had to afterwards. And I think his longest carry was only 9 yards, but he always had those first couple of yards to work with, and so did Abdullah. So if you can combine a plus for both Riddick and the offensive line, I'm curious to see more of Theo Riddick when he doesn't have the gaping holes that are created when the offensive line maybe is against a bad team like the Jets, who didn't have a lot of star power out there on defense, at least in the front seven. But Riddick looked good, and the offensive line I thought looked phenomenal.
Well, yeah, Riddick did look pretty good. And I think you hit a good point there as far as
I usually do, Brandon. I usually do.
A blind dog's going to find a bone every now and then. But I mean, there was talent there. You did have Leonard Williams on the other side, and I can't remember. I don't think they played everybody. I thought I saw Sheldon Richardson for about 5 snaps.
I didn't see Richardson. Was Richardson out there? I didn't even notice him.
Yeah, well, he actually played. From what I read it somewhere, and I couldn't remember where I read it, so it didn't make my notes. But he played 5 snaps, I guess, in the second team and destroyed. And I mean, it's probably because I was just trying to keep awake. But
I think he did. He got a hit on Moore. I think he did hit Kellen Moore. Not to detract or take away from what you're saying. Yeah, Richardson did. I think he did have one hit on Moore at one point. But please continue.
Well, and also circling back, Quentin Copples was a first-round draft pick in 2012. Although I don't think anybody would mistake him for so much as one now. And obviously, Muhammad Wilkerson did not play. He's nursing a sore hamstring, and that's he's a beast, as we've been over before. And we're not going to see. I'm surprised they put Sheldon Richardson on the field.
I was too. I honestly was too.
It's the Jets. What do you really expect? One thing they did I know I've written about it approximately 319 times since April alone about the power-based scheme that we're going to see a lot of.
Yeah.
I don't feel like I saw it. I mean, I counted like 4 stretch plays in the first quarter, maybe alone, the outside zone.
But I don't think these were the running backs that the power stuff is really going to complement, though, either. I think that's more when Joique Bell's on the field, if and when he is. So, I mean, with Abdullah and Riddick, I mean, those don't really play to their strengths, I wouldn't say.
That's true. I just thought they'd probably, or
you'd still use it.
Reps.
It's preseason.
Yeah, because you still got to get guys moving. I mean, Zach Zenner, when I saw like the way he picks up like 9 yards, it looks like a drunk on a mission to get some Bell's Pizza. It's just like he just kind of barrels along, and it's not flashy, it's not fun. It's fun, but it's surely he's not going to win Dancing with the Stars anytime soon.
Neither is Kellen Moore. Did you see his carry? That was phenomenal. He did have a nice evaded nicely in the pocket, but then you actually watch him run, and it's just the most gingerly trot you've ever seen.
I don't know if I don't think we're supposed to talk about gingers, but so we're gonna have to edit that out of the show. Regardless, well, let's just stick with Kellen Moore for a second, and I mean we're gonna go kind of all over the map. It's just we're gonna go where the conversation leads us. As far as a guy who hurt himself last night, did anybody do worse than Moore?
No, I honestly,
besides,
I think Kyle Van Noy might have done just as bad as Moore, but we'll get into him. Kellen Moore, he obviously came out second after Stafford, so he got the second string reps ahead of Orlovsky. And I mean, it's all going to boil down to what you're going to take away from last night between those two is when Kellen Moore had to throw the back shoulder fade into the end zone, he underthrew it and it was inside and it was picked off.
That was ugly.
It was terrible. And Orlovsky, who's no more than at best a below average quarterback, made that throw because it's a throw that any quarterback can make, and yet Kellen Moore couldn't. So, and Orlovsky is, if he's better than Moore, it's so marginally better, but that's a throw that any NFL quarterback is supposed to make. And Orlovsky did, and it goes for a touchdown, and Moore throws an interception. I mean, I think that it all boils down to that. And if there's a second stringer, I think Orlovsky has to be ahead of Moore. Because Moore he refuses to do anything to give you a sign of life that he could do the minimal possible when he's on the field.
Yeah, I mean, it was an ugly debut in the first half. I'm not sure he's ever played in the first half before. The offensive line didn't do him any favors. I felt like he was definitely under a lot of pressure. I haven't gone back and watched it a second time yet. This is just kind of a first reaction. If I find anything deeper, that'll come out on Tuesday when we do the show with the guys from Sideline Report, Nate Williams and Mike Payton. But as far as the way that throw, the way he threw the ball, it just he didn't look comfortable. Last year he looked comfortable. This year he did not, and it almost looked like he was guessing.
Yeah.
Not that Orlovsky. I mean, Orlovsky looked good in relation to Kellen Moore. I don't know that I call Orlovsky good. He did have the back shoulder throw that he executed pretty well, but it's still he made a lot of guys reach for a lot of balls that it shouldn't have been that difficult. Right. I don't know that anyone hurt themselves last night more than Kellen Moore, and it kind of makes you wonder if he's going to even be on the roster at the end of this. I mean, what's the point of keeping him if it's going to be that bad? And I guess this is a good time as any to hit on one guy who actually did get hurt. There was one injury last night. Darren Keaton, the interior reserve offensive lineman, they're saying knee injury, and it's probably significant, probably out for the year. It's kind of the guess out there among the beat writers. Obviously, the Lions don't comment on things like that. On a human level, of course, you never want to see that. On a team level, it probably won't have any effect on the bottom line.
Right. Yeah.
Not to be cold.
No, there's just the reality is that none of the front line or the starter guys were hurt. We'll see if it is season ending for Darren Keaton. Obviously, you don't wish for that, but that's all indications are pointing to that. If we have an update before Tuesday, we'll definitely provide that for you guys. If you haven't found it elsewhere already on Twitter, Facebook, and the like. I did want to note one other thing on the quarterbacks, and just with Kellen Moore's performance in this, and let's say it's a similar thing in week 2. I don't think Garrett Gilbert's a guy that makes this team, but why not at least give him more reps and see what you have there and just give him a chance other than a few late handoffs in this game? And if you're going to roster him for now, why not give him these preseason reps alongside of Moore and Orlovsky just to see what you have and if there's a chance with him rather than having him on the roster and wasting a couple late handoffs on him? I just wouldn't mind seeing a couple reps for him getting a chance to really throw the ball late in the game, other than a short screen and handoffs.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a few reasons for that. I mean, the local beat media, especially the older guys, we're talking about, they don't think they've ever seen Detroit use 4 quarterbacks before. So there's that plays into it. There's the fact that I don't, like you said, Gilbert's probably not going to make this roster, so they really need these other 2 guys, Moore and Orlovsky, to work out their issues and to do it quickly. And plus, I mean, Gilbert's been around for a month.
Yeah.
So this is a complicated offense. I think I'm okay with it because I'm guessing the last game he's probably going to get plenty of snaps. And maybe even this coming week. Who knows? Who is it? The Redskins?
That's the Redskins on Thursday night. Yeah. Or the Washington football team on Thursday night. I apologize.
Yeah. These Thursday night games. But
it's just if you're going to roster him for now, I don't see the harm in giving him some of those reps, or when he is in there late in the game, instead of all handoffs, why not give him a couple of throws and at least let him throw against an NFL defense? If you're going to have the roster spot, even if it's only for a couple preseason games, just give him some throws. I mean, it's not a huge issue by any means. It's just something I noted during the game.
Yeah, and I'm fine with that, I suppose. Another guy actually, and he's a backup, and he's actually switched positions because we're going to gear back to the offensive line here. I thought Michael Williams was very good last night. The Pro Football Focus grades were out. Of course, I don't know when these guys sleep, but they're already out, and they showed him to have a pretty good game. He had like a positive 2.9 or something. But when they were running the stretch play, you could really notice how his athleticism comes in to that type of play. I mean, there was one, I think it was the first quarter with Theo Riddick running the ball, where he was able to just keep playing his defender along until Riddick was able to get inside him. And it really showed a lot of great lateral agility there. I thought he was really good at pass protection. He seemed to stymie a lot of defensive ends. His kickouts, which were a big problem, or slack. Gosh, I can't even think right now. Kick steps were really good, at least compared to where they were last year. And he's talked about that. That was one of the biggest things, adjustments in changing positions. So I really thought that he's shown well. The offensive line as a whole, especially that first unit, it seemed that they did a good job. I didn't really have anything to quibble with up front, did you?
I tried to, at least for a couple plays, really watch Laken Tomlinson, just because he's the first round pick, and you pay attention to him more than you do others in his first game. And I thought there was a couple times where he actually kind of got beat off the jump, or beat off the snap.
Yeah,
but he recovered pretty well. I thought he recovered well when that did happen. And for a guy in his first preseason game, I think it's to be expected that he's going to get beat on a couple of plays at least. And I thought his technique was good. I thought he recovered well on those plays. I'm excited to see him in more preseason games. Hopefully a lot of reps moving forward. And I thought he was really good in run blocking and getting his momentum forward when he needed to. I thought he was really solid, aside from getting beat off those first steps, like I mentioned. And I think that the other rookie on the offensive line, Corey Robinson, he took some reps later on with, I think it was the third team, and I thought he was fine as well. I mean, he's a late round pick, so not as much intrigue there as for an offensive lineman, but I thought he was at least capable as well.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I watched Robinson a little bit. I just kind of I was drawn to Michael Williams, which is weird. Got to watch those right tackles. It's usually what I watch all game. But I kept noticing that he was sealing off things well. I didn't see, as the plays that I did see from Corey Robinson weren't as good. I think if you're looking at that position battle right now, I think it's Michael Williams by a comfortable lead right now. There's still a lot of time left, but it's kind of nice to see when they made that project and it seems to be paying off all right. Is there, I mean, I guess on the offensive line, we only saw the starters for, let's see here, like 10 snaps.
Right.
Travis Swanson, I guess, played 18. So did Lucas. So there really wasn't a lot to see, especially from that first string offense. But they did march right down the field. Scored in no time. Golden Tate, he's Golden Tate at this point. If he's not one of the best wide receiver twos out there, I don't know. I must be watching a different sport. And Stafford looked good, but I mean, what did he throw? 2 passes?
Yeah, but the one was the second one, the touchdown to Tate was great, where he stepped up under pressure. He stepped up and made a tough throw in the pocket. Yeah. I mean, you're only getting 2 throws out of your starter here in the preseason game, but for what it was worth, that second throw was a really nice one.
Yeah, and it's it was slightly high to get it over the linebackers, but it was
Yep.
still very catchable. And it's not, Tate is obviously a great athlete, but not exactly very tall. I guess in moving into those wide receivers, my gosh, Greg Salas, I think he's is he taking snaps away from Calvin Johnson at this point?
He had something to prove against his former team in that Week 1 preseason game, didn't he? But Salas finished with five catches for 92 and a TD. The one was the back shoulder from Orlovsky in the end zone. He had 9 targets, which was, I think, the second most targets. Let me look here. I don't want to mess this up. Yeah, Andrew Peacock had 4. Salas had 9. So Salas was the main guy for the Lions all night. No fear for Calvin Johnson, I don't think. But for what it was worth, Salas definitely made his presence felt in Week 1 of the preseason.
Yeah, and there were some nice catches. I mean, he's 6'2", he's 210, and he used his body pretty well. The back shoulder type throw, was that? That was his touchdown, I think, the 20-yarder, and that was a nice catch. It was exactly what you wanted to see. It was textbook. And he had a 35-yarder where he slipped right behind the cornerback, and he just showed very soft hands to bring it in. But even then, he's still, Lance Moore and Ryan Broyles, neither did anything great. I think 2 catches, 18 yards was the average between them. One had 17 and one had 19. I don't remember which one's which. I don't think you really saw anything out of them, and I think that's probably by design, again, keeping everybody healthy. But I've seen a lot of people talking about, now Greg Salas is ahead of Corey Fuller.
Stop it.
That's just, it's not true, folks.
Right.
I understand, and it's exciting. It's football. We haven't seen it in quite a while.
And it's against the 2s and 3s in Week 1 of the preseason, folks.
Exactly. And Corey Fuller, let's see here, played 16 snaps last night. That wasn't because they don't think he's developing well. It's because they think they're comfortable with what he's doing at this point. They don't want to get him hurt, just like everybody else that didn't play very much.
Right.
So we got to stop with that. That's just the comments on my last article where everybody's talking about how, well, we all know that Greg Salas is better than Fuller. He's not. Otherwise, he wouldn't be a fifth-year veteran just trying to hang on to a team that only had 2.5 receivers last year. The other guy, obviously, TJ Jones, the return man. That was pretty exciting to see. Did you come away? I mean, Jeremy Ross only got, I think, 1 kick return.
I think, and Abdullah was out there. Abdullah was out there for a punt return as well, and I actually did.
He had a kick return too.
Okay, the punt return was he waved it when he had actually a lot of green space in front of him to go. Which that was one note I had in Abdullah was he could have taken that punt, but I mean it's whatever. It's Week 1 of the preseason, but it was a note at least. Pleasantly surprised by what you saw out of TJ Jones, and even he had a catch. I don't know, was it like 15?
It's a tough catch.
Yeah, it was. I think it went for 15 or 16 yards, what have you. He was only targeted the one time. He caught it. It was a nice catch. I mean, as far as the opportunities he was given, TJ Jones took advantage of them. There's not much more you could have asked for him in this game. For when he had an opportunity, he took advantage.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of a welcome to the party moment. Like, all right, so we've been talking about Jones, and everything's had to be conjecture just because we haven't actually seen him take a snap in the NFL. But I thought he was aggressive with those punt returns. He averaged 10.3 yards per 3 attempts. I think it was like 31 yards. Yeah, obviously that would make sense. But that's a top 10 average over a season. Now, I'm not going out there and putting that's what he's going to do, but it was exciting to see, especially because Ross, he looked okay in the first one. He kind of maybe missed an opportunity there, and well, we all know that Ross isn't just going to run away with the receiving competition. So I think that there's a legitimate, now we're talking about a very legitimate return battle. Not that there wasn't before, but now we're starting to know who the players are, because I never bought into Golden Tate. I never really bought into Ameer Abdullah returning kicks. Just they're too important. Right. I thought that TJ Jones, he was one of the guys that really helped himself out a lot. Last night. Did anybody else kind of stand out to you?
Well, for what it's worth, and he's not someone that's going to make the team, but the backup kicker, Kyle Brinza, he might be earning himself a spot somewhere in this league. He went 2 for 2 on his field goals, kicked a 49-yarder, had a nice extra point. Remember, the extra point was moved back this year, so it's a little bit longer. So, I mean, it's not going to have an effect on this team because Matt Prater solidly has this job. But I thought that Brinza looked good as as far as the backup kicker goes. On the defensive line, I thought Gabe Wright looked pretty good in the interior when he took some snaps. The rookie from Auburn, not a standout by any means, but I thought he looked comfortable. He didn't look out of place. Quandre Diggs as well had some reps in the nickel and looked pretty good. He defended at least one pass that I saw, and for the hype and all the buildup we've been giving to Quandre Diggs, I thought he was very solid in his first effort in the preseason.
Yeah, there was one play I remember Gabe Wright on as far as stuffing the run. Yeah, and I see here Pro Football Focus has it as a stop. So basically, he blew up the play, but he spun inside and just kind of ate up the running back. And it was nice to see. I don't know that he had a great day or a bad day. It was I think you were kind of hit the nail on the head. He looked at least like he belonged. Karan Reed and Tyron Walker, I don't think did that great against the run. They struggled a bit there, and that's where you're hoping that Haloti Ngata is going to be that guy. He obviously didn't play last night, neither did Jason Jones. So I didn't read the Drew Sharp article yet, so I probably shouldn't comment too much, but I know that there was some reference to Sue's gone, run defense is in trouble.
Oh, gosh.
A little early.
Here we go.
Especially with Ngata not playing.
Yeah.
I thought that one thing that surprised me was the defensive tackle depth that actually played pretty well. I mean, Wooten, he's not necessarily a pure defensive tackle, but I noticed because I had to look up half these numbers.
Yeah.
It's like, who's 99? And then Jermel Cujo, with the fumble recovery, I saw him have another stuff on the interior. I thought those guys, they really surprised me. I don't know that either of them, maybe Wooten has the best chance because he could play defensive end, but I don't know that either of them make the team, but they did put together some good tape for kind of off roster depth. Yeah. If they don't get signed and somebody gets hurt, those guys are getting called right after Andre Fluellen.
And as far as guys that kind of didn't look as good, and I mentioned Van Noy off the top, but I'm interested to get your thoughts on this as well. I thought he looked like the game was too fast for him. Tahir Whitehead in his reps looked so much more the starting caliber linebacker over Kyle Van Noy, who I just seemed out of his depth, and I was really surprised at just how much I thought the game overwhelmed him. And it's just, again, week one of a preseason game against 2s and 3s from the New York Jets, and I didn't think Van Noy looked good at all. I thought he was behind the 8 ball just about every snap he was out there.
Yeah, there was one snap that I noticed him, where he didn't bite on the play action fake and went right after the quarterback, and I think he got a hurry or a hit or something. So good for him. But as far as just how he looked in the run game, especially, it's just not there yet. Pass coverage, I remember him recovering well on one play, but that's about all I could tell you. He didn't really come out of note. But as far as guys that really hurt themselves last night, I don't think it's just Kellen Moore to me, I think. Okay. Nobody else is that bad. As far as staying in that linebacker core, I thought Travis Lewis had a very nice game. He led the team in tackles, which, again, doesn't mean much. But he was solid filling in holes. I know he actually – I think he joined with Van Noy on a punt return. Well, not a punt return, but a punt tackle. Yeah. So that was nice to see. And Taylor Boggs, the backup center, he ended up having the highest Pro Football Focus grade, plus 5.4. So that kind of came out of nowhere for me. I think I'd seen his name in a couple of beat writers' notes. Obviously, I didn't go to many practices being out here in Arizona. They didn't have any. So let me nice to see.
One more name that hurt himself, and not because of his play, but he wasn't on the field, was Alex Carter, who didn't play in this game. And I thought the guys that were in the secondary and did get on the field all looked pretty good, including Nevin Lawson. And obviously, Darius Slay is entrenched as a starter, and he looked good. He almost had a pick six or what have you. He would have went all the way if he did get a hold of that ball. Rasheed Mathis didn't dress either, but Alex Carter is someone that's going to need to get on the field sooner rather than later to have a shot at any type of real role in this defense. And the more preseason games that go by him, the lesser chance he has of having a role.
Well, and that's where things start to get weird, because it's almost like Van Noy last year. I mean, are you going to try to put this kid on the PUP list? I mean, I understand it's only an ankle turn from what we know.
Right.
For all we actually know, he had a heart attack and he's going to need a few weeks to recover. You never know with the Lions. They are very they aren't very forthcoming with their information. So you have to wonder about the severity of his injury, and is the PUP list in play? Because there's got to be somebody that can play outside. Now, I have to go back and look at the tape, which I'll probably do over the next 2 days, but it looked like Nevin Lawson was playing some on the outside.
Yeah, at least a couple of snaps.
Right, so maybe they're kind of preparing for that, want some versatility out of him. He looked healthy. I saw he had a few tackles, not a whole lot else going on. As far as Diggs, I didn't really notice him all game, except he had some blanket coverage on a fourth quarter slant. One other thing of note that I could think of before we get out of here is there was you saw some of Terrell Austin's scheming ingenuity going on last night. There was a few different looks. They were overloading a lot, where they were putting the defensive tackle almost on top of the center and having that space in between him and his defensive end. And they also went back to that stacked on the tackle look, where last year it was Sue and Ansa over some poor tackle's shoulders on both sides. I mean, that's scary.
Yeah.
But it worked well this time for Karan Reed. He was able to put the left guard on skates, and that's when he got his sack. And Devin Taylor was there too. He crossed face of the opposite offensive tackle and got in there. So that was another thing I noticed.
Yeah, I love being able to see those kind of schematical things. Watching the lesser guys on the defensive line, or kind of the depth pieces, the backups, still utilizing some of the stuff in Terrell Austin's scheme, where it's not only the top guys are trusted to do these things. Let's use these preseason games and take these backups or these depth pieces and allow them to do some of the trickier stuff that this defensive scheme allows. It's great to see it in the preseason and to see it working. Granted, against 2s, 3s, 4s in some cases from the New York Jets, but you want to be able to see these guys understand and comprehend the intricacies of Terrell Austin's defense, and by and large, they did in Week 1.
Yeah, I mean, overall, looking at actually, let's do two different things here. So the first team, the starters, and then there's the team as a whole. About what you expected, better or worse?
It's certainly not worse. As far as the starters go, this was about as good as I was hoping for. I guess I'll say it's a little bit more than what I expected. I didn't know just how much we were going to get of Stafford and Tate. And I actually saw in the Packers game, Aaron Rodgers went and played a whole quarter. He went 11 of 19. He does 19 attempts. We get 2 out of Matthew Stafford, but 2 for 2.
That guy needs to practice.
Yeah, right. He needs all the reps he can get. Stafford did what you'd hope to see out of him. Abdullah does as good as advertised, and Tate's every bit as good as you knew he would be. It's all roses here for me in Week 1. It's as good as advertised or better.
Yeah, I mean, well, and we didn't even talk about the start tonight. Eric Ebron was phenomenal.
Yeah, that one catch that he had, that was just that's special.
Well, he did have some good blocks actually as well, which is encouraging to see. But
absolutely,
again, just like everything else with the starters, as long as you don't screw up, it looks good. I think
it was 12 snaps for Ebron. He had the 1 target and 1 catch. So I mean, for what Ebron was asked to do, seriously, for what he was asked to do in this game, he did what you would hope he did.
100% catching rate.
Yeah, no doubt. 1 for 1. It's a strong start to 2015.
Well, you got to start somewhere, folks, and that's where we're starting our preseason coverage. We will be back Tuesday. Let us know how you folks think that the Lions did in this first game, better, worse, or about what you expected. Is Ameer Abdullah headed to the Hall of Fame in the next 3 years? Anything you want to talk about, let us know, or just drop us a question. We'll talk about it on the next show. Lions Central Radio on Facebook, at Lions Central PFC on Twitter. You can find me at Brandon Alisaglu on Twitter. You can also find Nick Kostora at Nick Kostora, Kostora on Twitter. And I guess people probably can't spell my last name either because I can barely pronounce it. It's Alisoglu.
Yeah, a ton of content coming your way, folks. Hopefully you're able to listen to this show before we come at you again on Tuesday. Plenty of shows during the preseason. We enjoy bringing all this stuff to you. Again, tons of guests coming up the next few weeks, so stay tuned for all of that. Until the next show on Tuesday, for Brandon Alisaglu, I am Nick Kostora. Thank you so much for tuning into Lions Central Radio.